Discover the incredible life-changing transformation of this grandma's hidden trauma. In a cozy suburban neighborhood in Ohio, the smell of freshly baked cookies wafted through open windows. Children laughed and played outside, their joy echoing in the gentle summer breeze. For Agnes, a 72-year-old grandmother, this was a sanctuary, a world she dedicated her life to nurturing. She poured her love into her daughter Sarah, a single mother working tirelessly as a waitress, and into her bright grandson Ethan, whose dreams of college shimmered in his hopeful eyes. Yet, beneath Agnes's warm smile, shadows of hidden trauma loomed, a painful betrayal that once shattered her heart and left her weary of love. When Sarah lost her job, the foundation of their modest household began to crack. Stress seeped in like the summer humidity, pressing down on them all. Unable to make ends meet, Sarah was overwhelmed, navigating a labyrinth of choices: accept a demanding new job away from home or stay to care for Agnes, who increasingly needed support. As the weight of her decision bore down on her, the atmosphere thickened with tension. Ethically, all Agnes could do was watch, feeling the bonds of her beloved family stretch and fray. One sunny afternoon, at the bustling local farmers market, Agnes stood at a booth decorated with handmade crafts, surrounded by laughter and the soft strumming of guitars. She watched as neighbors shared their joys and sorrows, their vulnerabilities laid bare. It was a stark contrast to the tempest brewing within her heart. Memories of her own past rushed to the surface, and as she saw a young mother tenderly comforting her crying child, she felt her own chest tighten. Could revealing her pain help heal not just herself but her family too? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the once lively chatter droned on around her, Agnes felt a spark of determination ignite within. She had spent far too long hiding her scars, holding her family at arm's length. She needed to confront her past, to open the door to her heart and let love flood in despite the fear. It was a chance for healing, not just for her but for Sarah and Ethan too. Summoning immense courage, Agnes approached Sarah, who was lost in her thoughts. The moment was electric, a collision of past and present. Agnes felt her heart race, but she knew she had to share her buried truth about the betrayal that haunted her, about the love she feared losing. With the weight of years behind her, she took a deep breath, desperate to connect and mend the rifts threatening to tear their family apart. The path ahead brimmed with uncertainty. Would they embrace vulnerability together? Or would her painful memories drive another wedge between them? Agnes faced her past, and with it, the promise of hope flickered in the air. Tantalizing and yet so fraught with risk. An emotional storm brewed, but the question lingered in the wind: could love triumph over shadows? Or would the echoes of fear keep them locked in their struggles? Eager to find out what awaited on this journey of healing, Agnes's heart swelled with a fragile blend of hope and trepidation, unsure if this confession would bind them closer or further unravel the tapestry of their family. Agnes took a hesitant step closer to Sarah, the sunlight casting soft shadows around them. It felt like stepping into the unknown, like opening a door that had long been sealed shut. "Sarah," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to tell you." Sarah looked up, her brows furrowing with concern. Agnes could see the fatigue etched across her daughter's face, the weight of the world resting on her shoulders. She could feel it too. But this, however daunting, was their chance for connection. "I've carried something for so long, something that has shaped who I am and how I've been with you." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, a reflective worry that made Agnes's heart ache. She took another deep breath, steeling herself. "It's about your father and the choices I made that affected our family." The confession hung in the air, fragile and poignant. Sarah blinked, processing the words. There was a flicker of recognition, and Agnes watched as her daughter pieced together the fragments of a past she had only known in whispers. What if this revelation brought them closer? What if it pushed them apart? With each shaky breath, Agnes pushed on. "I never told you everything about why your father left. It wasn't just him choosing to walk away. I was hurt by his betrayal, and it broke the love I thought I had. I felt I had to protect you both." With every word, Agnes felt a weight lift. Yet a new one replaced it: fear of rejection. Sarah's expression softened, but confusion lingered. Why didn't you say anything sooner? It was a gentle accusation, one that struck Agnes like a sharp gust of wind. I thought I was protecting us. I thought I could spare you both the pain. But all I did was build a wall. Agnes felt a tightening in her throat as she let the truth spill forth. I pushed you away, not realizing I was pushing you into silence. I'm so sorry, love. Silence enveloped them like a thick fog. The chaos of the market faded and time slowed. Agnes searched Sarah's eyes for understanding, for forgiveness. I just wanted to be strong, Agnes whispered, her voice cracking. But I see now that strength is in sharing our pain, not hiding it. Slowly, Sarah reached out, her fingers brushing against Agnes's hand. It was a simple gesture, yet it ignited a candle of hope in Agnes's heart. I didn't know, she replied softly, the weight of her own feelings surfacing. I felt so alone in all of it. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting warmth across their troubled faces. In that moment, they both recognized the power of vulnerability. The bond between them began to shift, opening the door for understanding and healing. But just as hope began to spark, Sarah's face clouded with deeper worry. What about Ethan? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Agnes's heart sank. They had taken a step toward healing, but now another question loomed larger than the first. Would Ethan be ready to hear their truth? Could they handle the ripple effects of their revelations? Agnes took Sarah's hand firmly. Together we'll figure this out. One step at a time. But uncertainty clung to them, whispering doubts into the quiet spaces of their hearts, gnawing at the edges of their fragile progress. In that moment of connection, a new path opened up. The walls of the past had begun to crack. Yet the journey ahead looked daunting. They had shared a truth, but what lay ahead was another layer of honesty that would test the depths of their family ties. Could they uncover the strength to face a new storm that brewed on the horizon? With uncertainty shadowing their progress, they realized the real challenge was yet to come. Agnes felt the warmth of Sarah's hand, a lifeline in turbulent waters. But the mention of Ethan loomed over them like a gathering storm. What will we say? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The unease between them thickened, charged with yes and no, hope and fear. We'll tell him the truth, Agnes replied, though doubt crept into her own voice. It was one thing to share their secrets, but another to expose Ethan. He had always been the quiet one, absorbing life around him more than participating. His emotions often kept close to his chest. What if he couldn't cope with the weight of their truth? Agnes squeezed Sarah's hand, her mind racing through memories of little Ethan, laughing on the swings, filling their days with innocence and joy. He deserved to know. They all deserved the chance to lay the past bare. She could almost see the boy he used to be standing in the shadows, waiting for them to open their hearts. Let us breathe, Agnes suggested, drawing in a deep, steadying breath. The soft murmur of the market faded temporarily as they sank into the moment. He might be more ready than we think. It's been a while since we've all been honest with each other. Sarah nodded slowly, yet the worry didn't leave her eyes. What if he gets angry? What if he can't forgive us? Agnes let her gaze wander over Sarah's face, tracing the lines of her worry. It stung to see her daughter burdened by fears she had unknowingly passed down. But maybe he needs this too. He has been carrying his own weight. We just never saw it. Agnes spoke softly, her thoughts weaving back to Ethan's struggles, the shadows that seemed to deepen in his eyes over the years. We can't heal in silence any longer. Sarah looked thoughtfully at the scattered market shoppers, their laughter a stark contrast to the heavy feelings swirling around her. You really think he needs us to open this door too? To let all that out? It might hurt at first, but sometimes the hardest truth leads to the brightest light. We need to believe that this is the way to move forward as a family, Agnes said, her heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. They had come this far. They took one step toward unveiling painful truths. They couldn't stop now. Just then the afternoon sun broke through the clouds in full force, bathing them in warmth. For a moment everything felt right. But it was fleeting. When should we tell him? Sarah asked, the weight of the decision slipping deeper into her chest. Agnes thought hard about the answer. Soon. I think we should go home and talk to him right after dinner. Sarah inhaled sharply, digesting the idea. What if he storms out? Then he storms out, Agnes said, determination rising within her. But we have to be brave. For him, for us. He deserves to hear this from us together. As Sarah's eyes flickered with uncertainty, Agnes's resolve tightened. They might be stepping onto shaky ground, but coercion had never been their way. Maybe true healing demanded this level of risk. But what if it's too late? Sarah asked softly, her voice breaking. Agnes reached up to cup her daughter's cheek. It's never too late. Love and honesty might be the only things that can mend our family. As they stood there, uncertainty and hope coiling around them, Agnes didn't notice Ethan entering the market, blending into the crowd unaware of the revelations that awaited. Would the truth serve as a bridge or a chasm between them? They held on to each other, bracing for a journey that could redefine their lives. Moments stretched as they prepared to take that next step, hearts racing and breath held, staring into the unknown. What if this conversation changed everything? With a shared look of determination, they turned toward home, their hearts heavy yet hopeful. The door to their truths was wide open. Would they be ready for the storm that followed? The smell of roasted vegetables wafted through the house as they stepped inside, a familiar and comforting aroma. It was a stark contrast to the tension that hung in the air. Agnes glanced at Sarah, who was fiddling with her sleeves, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way to avoid the inevitable. Let us just go for it, Agnes encouraged gently, trying to match her own growing anxiety with optimism. They couldn't delay any longer. Kitchen sounds filled the space. The clinking of utensils, the bubbling of pots, and the muffled music flowing from the radio, all chipping away at the silence that surrounded their hearts. Yeah, okay, Sarah replied, but her voice lacked conviction. The mood in the kitchen was tense, like an elastic band stretched far too tightly. They moved together into the dining room where Ethan sat at the table, his head bent over a book, brows furrowed in concentration. Hey buddy, Agnes called, her voice a touch higher than usual. He looked up, surprised, and offered a faint smile. Dinner's almost ready, she added, her heart pounding at the sight of him. How could something so simple as a family dinner felt so monumental? Ethan nodded, returning to his book, but his eyes were distant. Agnes could feel the gap widening, the invisible wall that had formed over years of unspoken words and buried emotions. Ethan, Sarah started, her voice wavering. It felt like she was walking on a tightrope, caught between her desire to connect and her fear of what might happen next. Can we talk after dinner about something important? He raised an eyebrow, confusion flickering across his face. Sure, what's up? Is everything okay? Agnes locked eyes with Sarah. This was the moment. It will be later, she said, her voice steadier than she felt inside. The three of them gathered around the table, the food a feast of colors. But it felt more like a distraction than a celebration. They ate in relative silence, each forkful heavy with unvoiced thoughts. They exchanged small talk, but the laughter felt hollow, the jokes made half-hearted. Just when Agnes thought the moment might pass them by, she reached out, clasping Sarah's hand under the table, silent encouragement flowing between them. Their connection was electric, a spark igniting hope amid the uncertainty. After dinner, they cleared the table, Ethan's curiosity growing as he watched the weight of lingering tension settle back in. "Okay, what's this about?" he asked, looking between them expectantly. "Ethan," Sarah started, her fingers trembling. "There is something we need to tell you. Something about our family." Agnes felt the words catching in her throat. She took a deep breath, her chest tightening with a mixture of fear and resolve. This wasn't just about revealing their truths. It was about healing wounds that had festered for far too long. Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "Is it bad?" "It might be," Agnes admitted, her heart racing with the weight of what they were about to share. "But it's something you deserve to know. Just tell me," he urged, his voice firm despite the tremor she could see in his posture. Agnes exchanged a nervous glance with Sarah, who squeezed her hand tighter. They were in this together through storm and fear. As Agnes opened her mouth to speak, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, the sound of shattering glass filling the air. They all jumped, eyes wide. What was that? Ethan's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Agnes's heart dropped. Was this the universe telling them to turn back? Or was it a definitive sign that they needed to push through? The unexpected interruption had shattered the tense moment, but it also hung in the air, thick and charged. What lay behind that kitchen door? She glanced at Sarah, who looked equally taken aback, before turning her attention back to Ethan. He was asking questions, his eyes filled with concern, but Agnes felt the ground shifting beneath them. Before they could spiral into panic or distraction, they needed to pull themselves back together. They had come so far, every step carefully laid out to wind them to this very moment. But what would happen once they finally opened that door? Agnes took a deep breath, fixing her gaze on the kitchen door. The silence stretched, heavy and thick, as if the house itself were holding its breath. "Stay here," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't want to leave them behind, but the sound of shattering glass felt like a wake-up call. A pulse of dread ran through her. What if it was something serious? "I'll check it out," she added firmly, pushing her chair back. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but Sarah squeezed his hand, her eyes wide. "Be careful," Sarah whispered, her voice laced with worry. Agnes stepped toward the kitchen, her heart pounding with each step. It felt ridiculous to be afraid of a broken plate, but there was something about the moment that made it feel larger, as though it symbolized everything they were trying to confront. She reached the kitchen doorway, and with trembling fingers she paused. Before crossing the threshold, she took one last look back. Ethan and Sarah remained at the table, both on edge, waiting. Their expressions were a mix of trust and fear, neither entirely willing to face what was coming. With one deep breath, Agnes pushed the door open. The kitchen was lit with the warm glow of the overhead light, but the sight that greeted her was far from comforting. The floor was strewn with shards of a glass plate, the remnants glinting like jagged crystals against the rustic tiles. She knelt down to collect the pieces, heart racing as she reflected on how this seemingly small mess mirrored the shattered fragments of their family's story. As she gathered the glass, her fingers grazed a sharp edge, and she winced as a bead of blood welled up. The pain was immediate and sharp, jolting her back to the reality of the moment. "Agnes?" Ethan's voice called from the dining room, pulling her focus back. "I'm okay," she managed to call out. Though she knew it wasn't just her wrist that was bruised, there were deeper cuts festering in their lives. After setting the shards aside, she turned her head toward the living room. Images of their past flickered in her mind like an old film reel. Memories of laughter, warmth, but also the secrets and silences that had begun to grow like shadows. She took another deep breath and approached the table again. With hands clammy but determined, she looked at Ethan and smiled, albeit weakly. "It was just a broken plate," she said, trying to inject some normalcy into the air. Ethan's gaze softened, but the worry still lingered. "You sure?" "Yeah, just a little cut," she reassured him, turning her attention back to Sarah. "Now back to what we were saying." Sarah's expression had shifted from anxious to resolute. "Ethan, there are things we haven't told you. Things that might change how you see us and how we see ourselves." Agnes felt a wave of gratitude for Sarah's strength. This was their moment. They couldn't let anything, even broken glass, stop them now. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, squinting in suspicion. "About Grandma and the reasons for some of the decisions we've made," Sarah continued. "It's important for you to understand." Ethan looked between them, confusion and concern battling on his face. "Is this about her past? About the family secrets?" "Yes," Agnes said. "Secrets that have cast a long shadow over us. But sharing them, that's the first step toward healing." As she spoke, she felt another tremor of fear wash over her of what the truth would mean, of how Ethan might react. What if this revelation fractured their little family even more? Would sharing these hidden pieces bind them, or would they tear them apart? But before Agnes could calm her racing heart, a muffled sob came from the living room. The unmistakable sound of anguish seized her entire being. "Mom?" Agnes called, dread pooling in her stomach. "Is everything okay?" They had come so close to breaking through, to unraveling the tightly wound threads of their family's story. Yet it felt as though the universe had other plans. Would the reveal of their truth stand strong against the rising tide of emotions? Or was something darker lurking just behind? The door? The atmosphere thickened with uncertainty, and in that moment, all three of them knew something had shifted forever. The door was open, but how much more would they have to face to finally embrace the truth? Agnes's heart pounded in her chest as she heard that sobbing. It sent cold fear racing down her spine, a stark reminder that they were all teetering on the edge of a precipice. She shot a look at Ethan and Sarah, both of them frozen in their seats, faces pale. "Stay here," she whispered again, the urgency of her voice breaking through the heavy atmosphere. With quick strides she crossed the living room's threshold, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. As she approached the source of the noise, her breath caught in her throat. This collapse of emotion felt like a dam breaking, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for the flood. "Mom," Agnes called softly, entering the living room. The light from the kitchen barely reached this corner, casting long shadows against the walls. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. There, hunched over on the couch, was a figure wrapped in a quilt, the same one Agnes had given her mother years ago for Christmas. The sight of her tear-streaked face shook Agnes to her core. "Mom, what happened?" she asked, her voice trembling with concern as she approached her mother. Her mother struggled to pull herself together, but the raw anguish spilling from her eyes said it all. "I thought I was ready to talk about it, to tell you everything. I thought I could be strong enough." Agnes sat beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to go through this alone. We're here, Mom. We want to know." Her mother took a shaky breath, a momentary stillness falling over the room, allowing Agnes's words to settle. But just as quickly, the sobs returned, each one heavier than the last. "Your grandmother, she carried things that haunted her, things that should have never been kept secret, and I didn't realize until it was too late," her mother finally managed, her voice cracking under the weight of the truth. "What do you mean?" Agnes pressed, desperation coating her words. This was a moment for clarity. Years of whispered conversations and veiled references had built a wall between them. Each family gathering had felt tinged with tension, an unspoken agreement to ignore whatever had rooted itself deep within their shared history. "She suffered just like I have. I thought hiding it would keep you safe, that you didn't need to know about her pain, or the things that led to it. But maybe it's finally time to break that cycle, to share what generations have let fester." Agnes could feel her mother's fear, the fear that had kept so many wounds bandaged tight for all those years. It was raw and visceral, but Agnes also sensed a flicker of hope. They were on the verge of something powerful, something that might bind them together. Rising to her feet, Agnes felt the pull of anger and hurt twist in her chest. "Then tell us. We can't heal if we don't know what we're healing from." Ethan appeared in the doorway, anxiety etched on his face, the echo of their secrets hanging heavy between them. "What's going on?" he said, glancing between Agnes and her mother. "Mom is sharing about Grandma," Agnes replied. The words felt almost sacred, weighed down by years of silence. But instead of soothing her mother, a fresh wave of sorrow threatened to wash over her again. "I don't know if I can," her mother sobbed, tears streaming down her face. Just then, Sarah stepped up behind Ethan, her own determination reflected in her eyes. "But if we don't start now, when will we? We'll face this together." The room was thick with emotion, and Agnes felt a sense of urgency wrap around them like a blanket. They needed to address the heart of the pain, the truth buried deep beneath the surface. "Mom, we're ready. We're all ready," Agnes urged, frustration and compassion intertwining in her voice. But before her mother could respond, the living room darkened unexpectedly as the room's only lamp flickered and died. In that brief darkness, a palpable sense of dread filled the space. A moment of silence fell, as if the house itself was holding its breath once more. When the light returned, something shifted in the air. Something had changed. Agnes searched her mother's eyes, realizing they had traversed into uncharted territory, and nothing would ever be the same. "What have we uncovered?" she wondered silently, knowing their journey had just begun. But would they continue together? Or would this new revelation drive a wedge into the fragile fabric they had just started to weave? Agnes held her breath, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words and lingering shadows. She felt the weight of her mother's pain. But there was also the anticipation of a truth waiting to be revealed. The air crackled, charged with anxiety and expectation. They were at the edge of something monumental. "Mom, please," she pressed gently, coaxing her mother through the haze of despair. "Whatever it is, we can face it. Just take your time." Her mother looked up, eyes rimmed with red, searching through her tears for strength. "What if it changes everything?" she whispered, tremors thickening her voice. Ethan stepped forward, his brow furrowed. It can't be worse than the secrets we've already carried. It might hurt, but it can also heal. Sarah nodded in agreement, her presence firm and grounding. We're here for you. We want to understand. With a shaky breath, Agnes's mother finally seemed to crack the surface of her fears. I didn't just hide my mother's pain. I hid my own. After she died, the grief consumed me. It shattered me in ways I thought I could patch up with silence. Her voice faltered, and a heartbeat of silence stretched between them. Tell us how, Agnes urged softly. We need to hear it. Her mother looked down again, collecting her thoughts as if they were scattered ashes, still glowing with untold stories. It started long before I was born. Grandma had her own demons, memories of a life that wasn't just unhappy, it was traumatic. I know now she was haunted by so much. But I was taught to pretend everything was fine, to smile through the pain. Agnes felt the floodgates beginning to open, that flicker of understanding bathing the room in an almost surreal glow. How did she cope? By ignoring it, her mother replied, the tremor in her voice thinning slightly. And that's what I tried to do too, until it all came crashing back. The moment I lost her, I felt not just her absence but the weight of her secrets, pressing down on my chest. I didn't just lose a mother. I lost a roadmap of who I was supposed to be. The heaviness in the room shifted, tension giving way to a shared vulnerability. Agnes could see the pieces of her mother's heart arranged in a precarious balance, vulnerable yet visible for the first time. What if I never understood? Her mother continued, her voice barely a whisper. What if you can't forgive me for the silence? What if it changes the way you see me forever? Agnes shook her head. Mom, we're here to learn together. We can't move forward until we understand where we came from. Just as her mother seemed poised to dive deeper, another flickering shadow fell over them. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows like an echo of the unresolved past. Maybe it's not just Grandma's fears, Agnes suggested, glancing at Sarah. Maybe this is about breaking a cycle, all the things we've hesitated to say, the truths we've shoved aside because they felt too big to voice. For a moment, Agnes could see that glimmer of realization in her mother's exhausted eyes. Perhaps through this sharing they could find not just clarity, but a new path forged from understanding. Perhaps we've been waiting for someone to light the way, her mother murmured, a hint of encouragement threading through her voice. But as they stepped closer to that light, a new chilling breeze swept through the room, rustling the curtains, raising goosebumps on Agnes's skin. Was it just Grandma, though? Sarah interjected, her expression shifting to concern. Or is there something more we're missing? The question hung in the air, sharp and cutting through the fragile atmosphere. Agnes's heart raced. What else could be hidden in the shadows of their family history? What other layers had yet to be uncovered? The uneasy feeling in the back of her mind intensified, knowing they stood at a crossroads of revelation and the uncertainty of what was yet to come. Are we truly ready to dig deeper? Agnes wondered silently, her pulse quickening at the thought of unearthing more buried truths, and just then, another flicker of the light signaled darkened corners of the past waiting to unfold, and with it, the doubt loomed in her heart. Would they have the courage to survive it together? Agnes inhaled sharply, her chest tightening at Sarah's question. It was as if the room had locked into a still frame, every breath weighed down by the looming idea that there was much more hidden beneath their family's fabric. Mom. What else do we not know? She ventured, her voice steady but laced with urgency. The flickering lights cast erratic shadows, mirroring the uncertainty that gripped her heart. Her mother's mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears spilled down her cheeks, tracing paths of uncertainty. I thought I could protect you. Protect all of you from my past, but it seems that I may just be passing on that burden without even realizing. Ethan took a quick step forward, his voice soft but firm. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. We want the truth, no matter how painful, can set us all free. His words echoed in the space as Agnes leaned closer, searching for her mother's gaze. We're ready. Please, she pressed, inching toward her. Agnes's mother wiped her cheeks with trembling hands, and the flicker of courage seemed to spark within her. It wasn't just Grandma. There were things I never dealt with. Things about my childhood and my own experiences that echoed her pain. I thought time would wash it away, but it just wounded deeper into my heart. Like what? Sarah urged gently. Like the feeling of always being second best, her mother admitted, biting her lip. My parents were wrapped up in their own struggles. I grew up knowing they loved me, but I felt invisible. I was always the good daughter, the one who brought home good grades, the one who smiled during family dinners. But inside I was living in a shadow, terrified of disappointing anyone. The air thickened with emotions. Agnes could feel her mother's pain, like a heavy cloak enveloping them. You didn't have to be alone. You had us, Agnes reminded her gently. But I thought silence was strength, her mother replied, her voice a fragile whisper. When things felt too big, I just buried them deeper, thinking it would keep you safe. I didn't realize how that silence was suffocating me. And now it's threatening to suffocate us too, Agnes interrupted, a sense of urgency washing over her. What if this cycle continues unless we break it? Her mother nodded slowly. The weight of our family's secrets shouldn't be passed down any longer. I want to fight back against that pattern. Just then a clap of thunder rolled outside, rattling the windows once more and sending a shiver down Agnes's spine. It felt like a herald of change. Shadows danced in the corners of the room, taunting them with the untold stories tucked away in hidden boxes and forgotten corners. Moments ticked by, each heartbeat echoing into the silence. Their eyes locked onto her mother, awaiting the next layer of truth to unveil. What do we do now? Sarah's voice tinged with concern yet fueled with determination. We tell the truth, Agnes's mother said, her voice gaining strength. Not just mine but yours as well. We need to unearth everything that we've tucked away for too long. It may hurt, but it will allow us to heal. Agnes could feel a current of hope surge between them. They were standing on the precipice of something monumental, ready to dive deep into the undertows of their past. But the door rattled fiercely, as if driven by the winds of the storm outside. A heavy dread settled in the pit of Agnes's stomach. Are we really prepared for this? She wondered. What if there were truths darker than they had anticipated? The question hung in the air, echoing against the walls of their past, as they each felt a shiver pass through them. What would they find buried in their history? Each of them faced a personal reckoning, and Agnes's heart drummed with both fear and hope. In this fragile moment, they stood on the edge, peering into the unknown together. And just as her mother drew in a breath, ready to share once more, the power flickered and cut out completely. Darkness descended around them. What truths lingered in that shadow? The room plunged into darkness, the familiar walls closing in on them. An all-consuming silence filled the space, threading fear and anticipation through each of their veins. Agnes felt her heart pound louder than the storm outside, a rhythmic reminder of their shared vulnerability. Mom, she called softly, hoping her mother could still hear her. The dim light from the street lamps had been their only comfort, and now they were adrift in a sea of uncertainty. I'm here, her mother said, the tremor in her voice highlighting the fragility of the moment. Don't worry, we'll find a way through this. Agnes couldn't see her mother, but she could feel the warmth of her presence. What do we do now? Should we light a candle or use our phones? No, her mother whispered. Let us embrace this darkness for a moment. Maybe it's a chance to reflect on what we really need to uncover. Agnes exchanged glances with Sarah and Ethan. There was something beautiful in the darkness, a collective recognition of their shared fears and hopes. It was as if the absence of light shifted their perspective, forcing them to confront their emotions head-on. Okay, Agnes said, her determination rising. Let us start. You don't have to face this alone. A heavy silence followed, thick and pressing. Yet something ignited within Agnes's mother. I always thought my pain was a burden, but maybe it's part of my story to share. Agnes felt a surge of encouragement ripple through her. It is, Mom. It's part of our story too. The storm raged outside, but within the confines of their darkened home, there was a flicker of understanding. Agnes reached out, guiding her mother's hands into her own. There was strength in unity, a bond forged through shared experiences. I think I need to talk about the day it all began, her mother said, her voice steadying almost as if the storm outside were a reflection of her inner turmoil. My parents were fighting that night. I was young, too young to understand it all. But the noise, it felt like a battle I couldn't win. Were you scared? Sarah asked softly, the concern etched in her voice as she leaned closer. Very, her mother replied, the words heavy with childhood memories. I felt so small. I wanted to be brave, to stand up for them. But I wouldn't have known how, and I never found out what really happened. What do you mean? Agnes prompted, leaning in, her pulse quickening with each word. The fight escalated. I hid in the corner of my room, listening as their voices grew louder. And then, something broke. A glass, a heart, I don't know. I just remember the silence that followed it. When I came downstairs, they were gone in a way that I couldn't comprehend, leaving me wrapped in confusion. Agnes's heart ached for her mother. The pain she had carried for decades coalesced into the air between them, a palpable longing for a resolution that had eluded her. You weren't alone, Mom. You had feelings and memories, but you didn't want to burden us. Right, her mother said, a wave of realization washing over her. I thought my silence would spare you, but it only deepened my isolation. Just then the lights flickered back to life, illuminating their faces with soft light. Agnes looked around at her family, Sarah, whose eyes glistened with empathy, and Ethan, standing like a silent guardian. Now what? Ethan asked, breaking the tension that hung in the air. Agnes could feel the weight of her mother's past shift, the potential for healing unfolding before them like a delicate flower. It was time to pull back the curtain. But what secrets would be revealed? What shadows lay in wait? Now Agnes's mother began, her voice rising with newfound courage. Now we share everything. We dig deeper. The air buzzed with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Agnes couldn't shake the realization that they stood not just at the beginning of revealing dark truths, but at the start of rediscovering who they were as a family. But just as they all took a deep breath, the window rattled violently with another gust of wind, and a shadow passed across the room, darker than the fears they had just acknowledged. What else awaited them in the depths of their shared history? Agnes's heart raced as the shadow flickered past them, but she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. Disaster could come, but she wouldn't back away from the truth anymore. They were here, each of them, ready to face the tempest. Okay, she began, her voice steady. We can do this. Together. The weight of her words hung in the air. It felt like the calm before the storm. Her mother nodded, clearing her throat. As hard as it is, the past is where our healing starts. I can't keep carrying this. It's time to pass down the truth, instead of the burden. Ethan's brows furrowed. What are we looking for? Just the scary stuff? No, Agnes said. It's everything. The love, the chaos, the hurt, it's all part of us. We can't just let it fester. With renewed determination, Agnes stepped closer to her mother. What else do you remember from that night? Her mother's eyes glistened again with unshed tears, but also reflected strength. Everything felt fine up until that moment. We were supposed to have dinner together. They were fighting over something so trivial, and then it escalated quickly. I thought maybe, if I acted like things were normal, they would be. But hiding kept us trapped. As her mother shared, Agnes felt a warmth spreading, a connection bridging the gaps they had kept closed. She glanced at Sarah, who offered an encouraging smile, then looked at Ethan, whose expression was softening. I wish I could have protected you from that pain, her mother continued. But I didn't realize the truth could be the armor we needed to be stronger. Ethan shifted in place, tension easing from his shoulders. So we're not just talking about Grandma's issues. This is about all of us? Yes, her mother affirmed. We were victims of silence, a cycle of fear perpetuated through generations. This isn't just my burden. It's all of ours. Wow, Ethan breathed. It was like a light bulb flicked on in his mind. So if we stop pretending, we can finally move forward? Yes. Agnes' heart soared, pride swelling in her chest. She could see potential blooming. It wasn't just about dredging up old wounds, but about forging new paths together. The light flickered again, but this time it felt different. There was a renewed energy in the room, a sense of safety amidst vulnerability. They were a family confronting their darkness, ready to heal. What if we each share one truth? Sarah suggested, her voice spirited. One moment we've always felt affected by. Can be big or small. Something we never told anyone. Ethan's eyes widened. Like ground zero for each of us? Yes, Agnes said. Let us dig deeper. We have to unearth every piece to see the whole picture. I'll go first, Sarah said, adjusting her posture. There was a night I overheard you two arguing, Mom, about someone's job loss. I was scared you'd leave us because of all the stress. It felt like the world was collapsing around me. I never told you. Tears shimmered in Agnes's eyes. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I had no idea you were afraid. It's okay, Sarah offered, a hint of relief washing over her. But that fear changed the way I see love. I didn't think it was ever stable enough to lean on. Ethan stepped in next, voice steady. I always felt like I needed to be the good kid to keep the peace too, like other options meant hurting you guys. I didn't want to add to the chaos. I didn't know, Agnes whispered, her heart aching for her grandson. We should have talked about it instead of keeping it inside. We were all kids holding the weight of adult worries. Her mother, with her voice gaining strength, added, let us make it our mission to always prioritize communication, to allow vulnerability. No more silence. Every word forged connections anew, breaking old patterns, and as Agnes prepared to share her own truth, she felt lighter, realizing she would no longer hide herself from them. I almost did what Grandma did, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I was ready to walk away from all of you when things got tough. But then I thought about Ethan, about both of you, the family we had built. That's when I knew love. Isn't about the absence of struggle. It's the active choice to embrace it together. Her mother nodded knowingly, closing the distance between them by taking Agnes's hand. Now we break the cycle for good. No more secrets. As the thunderstorm outside began to subside, mirroring the release of tension in the room, they all appreciated that they did indeed have each other. Through every storm, love prevailed, binding them stronger than the shackles of silence. Agnes took a breath, feeling a swirl of emotions in the air. Together we'll face the storms to come. Together. The word echoed with newfound clarity, filling every corner of the room. What lay ahead was uncharted, but there was strength in their newfound understanding. They were courageous, united by their past, their present, and a shimmering hope for the future. The darkness gave way to a gentle glow. Love would guide them now. And as the last remnants of the storm faded, Agnes made a vow, one they could all share. They would thrive, not just survive. Now was the time to step forward, hand in hand, on their journey of healing, truth, and ultimately unconditional love. It's your turn to join us on this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly helps. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. The power of community lies in how we support one another. Don't wait. Not even one more second to share this.